We've got Thomas Kern, good friend, great attorney. Where are we at on AB5?
Well, so a couple cool things happened in March. We first need to talk about Prop 22 because it's significant to this. So Prop 22 is essentially a workaround for the Lyft, Uber, gig workers essentially so that they can continue as independent contractors. And 60%-ish of voters were in favor for it, so it passed. On March 17th, not long after, we had the Olson case, which is the sister case to the trucking case. The Olson is focused more on the rideshare folks. It's their challenge, essentially. And they got a big win from the Ninth Circuit based on equal protection. So AB5, as it stands now, exempts over 100 occupations. You've had these two, quite frankly, excellent decisions if you're on, team independent contractor, come out for the rideshare folks that are very helpful to the trucking folks. I mean, they can essentially make the same arguments. Why are we being singled out? There's an equal protection
Or the
issue.
over 100 industries that are given a pass.
What makes them special?
Right.
And why aren't we? And so I think you're going to see a bit of a shift to that type of thinking because it's effective. Nobody likes overreaching government. And actually...
But this is already on the books.
This is already on the books. And a lot of what I've seen and heard, particularly about the rideshare side, was it's being compared essentially to during COVID when certain groups were allowed to assemble, but like houses of worship and things like that were not, and they challenged those mandates from the California government successfully, and they said, it's the same argument. You're picking and choosing who you like. There's favoritism, right, or something worse.
Right, your church is closed down, but your recreational activity gatherings are not. That's okay.
Right, and so that was challenged in the houses of worship one. And so they were allowed to assemble in the same ways as these other groups. So they're, what I've seen is like they're essentially making the same argument here. Why is it that this is okay for these folks and not us? And that's sort of the equal protection under the law that was raised in the Olson case that was effective. So those are usually effective arguments, essentially, particularly in this day and age, and when you have meat behind it like you do in this situation. So I think you'll see a shift to that as well as those dormant commerce clause arguments at the hearing, and we'll see how it goes. But I will say it's trending toward AB5 being carved significantly. And
when you say carved,
it's getting smaller, and sometimes that's the approach as well, right? I mean, when you walk up to a tree, you don't just take off running and hit it once and it falls down. You got to chip away at it,
right?
And so you're seeing that happen here,
okay?
Right? With Prop 22, you're seeing and that's an idea for the trucking industry as well.
And the dormant commerce clause is what OIDA was using,
and that chips, right? That's another thing that has meat that chips away at the arguments. And then now you have this sort of equal protection argument.
What if you got 60% of the people in California?
Well, that should matter. And I think that's what the court is saying in the Olson case, in the Ninth Circuit case, in the state case, the state court of appeals, which was not the Olson case. It is essentially saying what the people want matters. I mean, that's what we work for them.
Right.
And
we're elected officials, the people's...
Right. And Prop 2022 is obviously, circumvents AB5, but the rideshare workers weren't, one of the precious chosen, so they had to do what they had to do to survive. And I applaud them for it. I mean, they went out there and got after it and made their own law and got the support of the people to do it. And so let that be a lesson for other folks who want to see change. I mean, obviously, again, ballot measures are not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of procedure, a lot of challenges you'll face. But if you can do it, you hear directly from the people. And this is clearly what they want. And so we'll see how this all shakes out. But in the interim, again, if you're on team independent contractor, this is really good stuff that happened in March.
Yeah, this is a definite significant blow to AB5 from what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I'm kind of anxious. I want to ask you, do you make a prediction at this point? But I don't think you can.
I would tend to believe that based on the 60% of voters in California that chose this thing.
And a large number of owner-operators, too.
Large number of owner-operators, but the people wanted this. And all those folks in California got to get reelected. So you don't necessarily want to go against what your electorate wants. Right. So I, not only from a political pressure standpoint, based on these arguments I'm seeing, I think AB5 will be either overturned or all the teeth taken out.
Well, I think that's good news for most of the people in California and a lot of us in the trucking industry, given the parity. You know, you can't have the Dormant Commerce Clause that OID is presenting, I think, is really strong without this.
Yeah.
I think that in itself is very strong because, you know, states aren't allowed to legislate like we talked about before. They're not allowed to legislate far and away from the neighboring states and other states because, you know, that affects commerce.
And they still need things delivered in California.
Oh, yes.
And obviously the supply chain is very important, particularly there. It's a big state with a lot of people. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think the Dormant Commerce Clause arguments are very strong. But I really like this equal protection argument that worked because you have quotes from government officials singling out rideshare, trucking, etc.
It's almost like it's a revenue generator. They're just looking at revenue.
Well, it would obviously provide more tax revenue, but it's obviously backfiring because the people don't want it. They want, what they want, and even if,
and they vote,
and they're going to vote even more. These elections are the most well attended we've had in this country ever. So yeah, people are coming out to vote, and they showed up in 2020, and they voted for Prop 22. They accepted it. The people want that. So, again, this Dormant Commerce Clause is really strong. This equal protection argument I love, and it wasn't 100 occupations at first. That's come over time. These folks keep getting exempt.
There's just going to be more and more and more.
Well, and that's where.
What's the criteria there?
Well, that's. Essentially, the argument is that there's no real reasonable basis, and that's why people are upset.
Right.
As to why some are being exempt and continue to get exemptions, yet these other specific revenue generators are not, and you have publicly spoken out about them, California officials. So I think the walls are closing in on them at this point. This is not going to go away. And I think the AB5 either goes away or the teeth are taken out of it. And
so then it's
business as usual. If the teeth are taken out, or if trucking, owner operators or whomever are given exemptions, we'll see where this heads.
But you can't selectively implement it on any other industry when you've given over 100 industries for a free pass.
That's the argument. Why? Right. What is the basis? Because, you could say for a surgeon, becoming an employee would make life more difficult for them, and we need surgeries, right?
Right.
But what about pet sitting? Why are they different?
Right.
And so I think those are real, serious concerns. Even surgeons, obviously it's important. I don't know that you could say it's more important than the supply chain, but it's very important. But it's really still no different. Right. Supply chain could mean life or death. The delivery of medicines could mean life or death. But it's pet sitting or even referral agents. What is a referral agency?
Well, that's a broad stroke there.
Well, and I think, and maybe that could be an entry point where, all of the trucking companies become a referral agency and refer,
Right.
essentially brokerage.
But we have laws on the books that work for that.
We do.
So,
We do. So it's, we'll see where this goes, but I really see the teeth being taken out of it at this point, particularly, it's been accepted, folks. The courts are now ruling, these decisions are coming one after the other against AB5. To me, the writing is on the wall, and even if this is not successful, I don't think this litigation, this dispute is not, the trucking industry is not going anywhere. They're going to continue to fight this forever. And so the government will eventually have to decide whether or not it's worth it to continue to challenge this, particularly in light of the arguments that are being presented and those specific statistics of the voters.
right.
Because all these folks are going to want to get reelected.
That's the eraser.
And if 60% of your folks are saying no,
Yeah, I don't like where you're at on this.
I mean, it's going to be tough. That's not a party line vote.
No, and they had trouble. Didn't they try and get their governor out?
Yeah, they tried to repeal or remand, whatever the proper terminology is, Newsom,
Yeah,
over the COVID shutdowns.
right.
So, I mean, California is particularly sensitive to this sort of overreaching government, if you will, because they've already seen it, dealt with it, challenged it, and won. So I don't think they're going to stand for this, particularly if they're seeing favoritism. If I'm a betting man, I'm betting against AB5 right now.
I agree. Definitely. Well, we'll have to catch back up on another week or two.
As soon as the opinion comes out for the 522 hearing for the CTA case.
That happens week of the 22nd?
Yeah, 522 is when the hearing's supposed to take place, and then we'll see what the decision is thereafter, and we can hop back on and talk to everybody.
Very good. Well, for all of our viewers, hopefully you've enjoyed the update. Thomas is great. Thanks for being on again.
Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
All right. We'll keep you informed.